himself getting passed by multiple cars, as I mentioned earlier on, so New off in a very precarious situation, but he often finds himself in these places. He doesn't qualify as well as he races.
Up front, they are getting with Lee Aberdeen and Luca Varani, not very far apart at all here. But I just want to see how Alistair Haig deals with Marcello Kessler coming around the old hairpin.
Say it's not the best decision they've ever made, just not having done that under the safety car, really.
Yeah, they're taking their pit stop strategies from Ferrari lately or something. What's going on?
In turn one, just too much gas on them, too much feet on the loud pedal, and unfortunately he's dropped him all the way down the order. But Philip Hammer is out in front by an 8.91 seconds. Dan Michael is a wall there, sir. And definitely doesn't want to be hitting that earlier on as well.
Difficult, the understeer is in the dirty air through that final corner because it's such a long corner and you get dragged off into the grass very easily. He'll have the slipstream down towards the chicane. Peterson was briefly alongside, but that slipstream has saved him and kept him in third.
Yeah, Varani now lost a little bit of time to Aberdeen, about half a second. Peterson is Pike's pushed Morton forward up ahead. He's got out of line. Is now Pike going to have a go at Werrell? Don't push him off. He's in the championship fight. Jack Werrell chasing down Carl Jacklin. Further down, Rob Williams and Chris Barnes.
Sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly. Miller's still start chopper. He's left on second and change. All of a sudden Miller's back in play.
To the back end of Phil Jocelyn. So there's been a lot of movers and shakers in this first 2 laps here for race.
Absolutely serious racing league. Everybody's allowed to have fun. Yeah, and it's all about the entertainment. So I hope everybody is enjoying themselves out there in the chat. We know that Ron is been enjoying himself watching. The Burger King machines off into the grass a little bit there as they're really bunching up now.
Good evening and welcome to the JPB YouTube channel. We have got something very special taking place today. I am James Parfait. I'm going to be joined in the booth by George Angelidis and Zach Sweeney, who will be with me for this special event. Winners Circle Project have come to JPB with the help of Storm Gang Simulation to set up this event. And what I'm going to do is bring George Angelidis in the booth, because George will be able to tell us exactly what the situation is with this event here as well today. It's a very interesting, very exciting event for JPB to be a part of, and Storm Game Simulation as well, who have done massives to help out with this event. So let's bring George into the booth here as well. George, are you with me, dear sir?
I am. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
It's a great day for racing, I think.
It is a great day for racing in general. Now, we've got an interesting project on our hands, right? That, you know, this is not something that is normal for JPB to be broadcasting. You know, it's a very niche event. Tell us about this situation, because obviously we know it's part of the Winner's Circle project. So tell us what they do if you can, and obviously how they've got to this stage of putting it onto a racetrack.
Yeah, sure. Winner Circle Project is basically a non-profit organization which has been designing to inspire fresh, young, innovative minds through STEAM programs, especially through in the high school kind of age range, trying to put them into the exciting world of motorsports and car racing in general. There is multiple fields that they are working on, kind of fields of science, technology, engineering, arts, math, and they're also spanning in and expanding to more different disciplines, and just not only on the racetrack, but even off it. Through the course of one academic year, basically, that's happening through one school year, high school students will build a Factory 5 vehicle from the ground up, and they have been doing this for about 2 years now, and this time is a little bit different. We were asked as part of Storm Gang Simulation to help them out on bringing a new thing into the project. As of now, students were eligible to build the car and be part of that, but they couldn't drive it, obviously, because they are now professional race car drivers. But they always wanted to be involved in it and see how they could actually participate more than just the building. And this is where Storm Gang Simulation and our sim racing comes in, where we said, okay, you cannot drive the real thing, but you can certainly try a virtual representation of that. And this is the end result of it. We built a Factory 5, we got the specifications from Factory 5, and got the vehicle into the game. And we are creating, along with Winner Circle Project, a way where this can be incorporated as a separate discipline in their classrooms for 1 year, into the extent where the schools are going to be having a competition among them once every month, and along with their school year incorporating classes like physics and math and technology into their simulation part, which is going to be part of the regular classroom every week.
Right, okay. We've got 5 schools taking part at the moment. We've got the Waverley Central School District as well, so a big shout out to Waverley if you're watching. We've got the FD Roosevelt High School as well, so thank you so much to them for joining us, and the John Jay High School as well, so a big shout out to John Jay. We've also got Owego Central School District taking part here, and the Roy C. Ketchum High School as well. So drivers currently at the moment for this school. Now we've got Natalie Hayes, who will be subbing in for Larry Tompkins. So Natalie will be driving the car. Sean Christensen, just awesome, and the first year in the project. And we've got William Roos, the avid sim driver and motorsport head for John Jay. And then Nick Rogers will be the driver for the Owego, I want to make sure I'm saying that right, I'm probably not, wrestling coach and a huge part of the success at the school. Lucas Bliss will be driving for the Roy C. Ketchum High School, and he's an award-winning shop teacher and avid fisherman. So there we go. So hopefully this should all be working out. Hopefully they're all prepared and ready and up and running and all sorts of things here as well. So from that point of view, we should be good and there shouldn't be any problems at all here whatsoever. Now there is 2 rigs, guys. These drivers are actually at Watkins Glen at the moment. They will take turns of subbing in and out of the rigs, so they will be coming in and out of the rigs. Now the format initially, what they're going to do is 2 laps each to set times here as well, and then the 2 fastest lap schools will go into a 2-lap head-to-head at the end of this here as well. So there will be a 2-lap basically to set the time, and then the top 2-lap schools will go head-to-head. Let's bring Zach Sweeney into the booth as well and have a chat with Zach. Zach, welcome in. How are you?
Doing all right. Yeah, looking forward to this. Obviously, found out about it yesterday, looked into it a little bit. It's actually a really interesting and unique thing, actually. We were talking, obviously, with George, and but obviously before the broadcast. And again, you know, for obviously these guys at their schools and things and their progression in sort of STEM subjects and things like that, but also sort of for sim racing to sort of prove that it can be used in practical circumstances, not just for fun or for competition, but the fact that it actually has practical use in learning and using it as a tool for education, I think is a wonderful thing. So yeah, let's bring it on.
Well, I'm not being rude here, Zach, but obviously if you think about it, if my high school had come up and said, hey James, we're going to put you into this program, we want you to build a Factory 5 roadster with a kit based off the Shelby Cobra, you know, like with 200 brake horsepower, 5-speed gearbox on it, I think I would be made up. I'm not going to lie. Like, you know, I would be excited because it's, you know, all of these things involved here. And certain schools just don't do that. You know, you go to shop class or wood class or DT or whatever it is they call it nowadays, and you build a lamp. You know what I mean? You don't build a car, do you? So for these
a little pencil case.
Yeah, so for these guys as well to be building these cars itself over this period of time, and then with the help of Storm Gang as well, putting them into R Factor here as well, and then driving them, they've got to be made up, surely.
Oh, it's a real experience, it must be. And I think it's a great thing, obviously, that these schools have got the capability, because so many schools, I know my high school would have been like, whatever, mate, just get on with it. Like, you know, we don't have time for that. But obviously the schools that have sort of taken it on board and, you know, given it a second chance, well, second look, I suppose, not necessarily second chance, but second look, and just said, you know, this actually is a thing. And it has got practical uses, because you look at sim racing and obviously their setups are locked and everything, but over the course of the year, as they, you know, learn more about different things, they can then apply those different things to their sim setups. But you look at a car and you've got all the nuts and bolts and all the mechanical moving parts of it, understanding how and why it works. I mean, there is so much physics, chemistry, even, you know, down to biology in the automotive industry. So there's your 3 sciences, the maths and the engineering side of thing, that ticks off your STEM. You know, you've got so many different uses available to you in sim racing that is just absolutely massive. And it's a really good thing that these sort of schools have all, you know, been able to band together, start, you know, get involved in this thing. And I think it's a great thing, obviously, for the young adults, I suppose, not necessarily children. They're, you know, 16, 17, 18 sort of age, but it's going to be a great opportunity for them, because motorsport and automotive is a very difficult industry to get into. Yeah,
it definitely is. And I think we can bring George back in here as well. And, you know, I've just been John Jay. So William Ruse is going to be the first one setting the first times here as well. George, the project itself, you know, is exciting for everybody, right? And, you know, they're working towards an end goal, though, aren't they? We've got a race event every single week. Now, tell us, what's the opportunity for the children, because of the young adults, I should say, sorry, here as well? Because obviously for them at the moment, you know, they're just looking, seeing what they could do, what the car could do. What's the opportunity for them to be getting into the car itself within R Factor 2 and within the car that you guys have built?
Yeah, it's great. Just to mention here that John Jay actually did go and do their first time 2 laps, and they came in with a 1:46.648 as their fast lap. So that's the time it's going to be going into the board, and we expect the rest of the schools coming up now. I think that Ketchum is the one coming up next. But yeah, going back into the schools, I think. It is a very unique opportunity for the kids to face that or see that for the first time because they are familiar with the world of video games or even playing around and tinkering with computers, but they have never made the connection that this can be used as an educational tool. And in this particular case, this is exactly what we're trying to do. We are taking something that can be used as recreational activity for some, albeit a competitive recreational activity, but to become one more of an important critical aspect into their school year. I think now it's Roosevelt coming up next.
Roosevelt. Yeah, FD Roosevelt with Sean Christensen coming out on the track as well. Good evening, Phil. Good evening, Stevie. Good evening, Anthony. Thank you so much for joining us for this interesting event. Don't forget, coming up directly, probably near enough right after this, we have got the JPB TCRs. But for now, let's concentrate. That is not a good way of leaving the pits there, Sean. Just awesome in the first year in the project. Well, unfortunately there, Zach, he looks like he might have to do a little bit more practice coming out of the pit lane.
Yeah, no offense, you can definitely tell it's his first year. No, I'm joking. We'll let's bed them into the JP banter first of all. But yeah,
let's not
these
upset
guys
them before we've even gone anywhere, Zach.
Let's let. He's not even on half a lap yet, but it was an awesome spin. Nice style points, I suppose. And you know, being this based off a Cobra, lot of rear wheel torque. You put your foot down, it's going to go. And for some that maybe aren't overly used to R-Factor 2, I'm not overly sure what assists and things they've got running, but if traction control's off, you're going to feel it. And lighting up the rear is a very easy thing to do. I'm sure they aren't on completely slick tyres or anything like that.
They're
It's
on
just
street tyres.
your kicks are. Street tyres, there you go, boom. And you can definitely tell that he is lacking for a little bit of grip. But it's a good thing, because what he's doing, he's got his out lap, he's got 2 flying laps, he's warming the tyres up, which is fine. Good thing.
Yeah, I think the thing is as well, though, with this whole project, right? Some of these could be the first time ever in a sim rig, and I think for these guys as well, for the likes of Natalie, Sean, William, Lucas, and Nick, they're gonna have to take time to get used to it, right? They've got to try and at least get one decent lap with a decent time on the board to be able to get through into, I suppose, potentially the final race here. So, overall, there's a lot for these guys to unpack. Look at the way the Cobra handles. It's not, Zach, by any short of the imagination, a F1 car with high downforce. The AC Cobra was never that. And I remember a friend of mine at school, and his dad had an original silver one, and literally he would only ever take it out if it was sunny. It would not come out at any other point than that. And they were never really, they are a motor car, I suppose, but they're not what I suppose the young adults of today would associate with motor racing, are they really?
Very raw cars.
Yeah.
Very fun. That's a missed apex and a barrier for Sean Christensen. But you live and learn. Obviously, he's going to be learning to press the brake probably about a different postcode earlier, just to make sure he makes the corner. Because again, this is as you say, this isn't a Formula 1 car. It's not got the slicks. It's not got the downforce. It's not got the absolutely insane brakes and brake discs and all of this, that, and the other, and all the technology under the sun in order to propel it. This is, 60s, 70s, 80s sort of era, I suppose, of cars.
I would have to bring George in to confirm that. George, can you confirm the era of the AC Cobra?
Yeah, it's 60s. I think it started in the 60s, with Shelby. Carl Shelby was the one designer of it, and it raced anything from, I think, 58 all the way till 63. 64, the second iteration of it was the Shelby Daytona. that basically went and if you watch the movie, it was the one that Ken Miles was driving before he went into the Ford GT program. So the very historic car, because it started, I would say, the beginning of a legacy. But yeah, it is as raw as it gets. No traction control, no ABS. It's just right now it is on radial street tires, performance tires, but yeah, it's not anything like the racing slicks that you get. So that's the rawest it gets.
Right, okay. So I was just going to touch on, George, what they have got in forms of traction control, ABS, as you say. They haven't got anything. What's the handling characteristics then, George? When you got this car, you know, how did the guys at Stormgame come up with a concept to try and put it together? Because it's not the most easiest car to be looking at. Did you have a spec sheet to work off? Did you think, right, this is what it's going to do, this is what we've got it, you know, we've tuned it down to 200 horsepower anyway, because obviously, you know, then they're not going to have the full amount of oomph in this Cobra. But how did you guys go about putting this in the car? What did you think when Pius came to you for the first time? Did you sit there and think, you're crazy? Like, you know, this is something that you're wanting to do. How did you guys prep for putting this into R Factor?
Yeah, it is a very unique concept, but we were given the spec sheet from Factory 5 itself about what is exactly on the car that the students are designing and building. And we were told to build up to that spec sheet. So yes, the Factory 5 Cobra is the way it is in the real world. It is the way exactly as designed. It has 378 horsepower, I think, and 454 Newton meters of torque. Red lines to 6,500 RPM. So it is really the full shebang here. So we didn't cut down on anything. It is as raw as it was asked, because this is how the students have to understand how it relates anything that they do to the real car. So we need to have correlation, because there's going to be a class where we're going to be talking about data analysis and correlation to reality. So they need to match the real car versus the virtual car. So that's very important for us.
So are you saying, George, you haven't dimmed it down to the reported 200 brake horsepower that Mr. Ross Smith did mention to me earlier? Are we saying that isn't the case and they're sitting on 378?
Yes, they are on 378, but they have a little bit more weight than what the car is coming. So the power to weight ratio wise, it's a little bit more tame, let's just say. But yeah, it does have the raw power.
Yeah, I can see poor old Sean here is having a bit of a nightmare as well. He's just seen doing donuts there, Zach, as well. You know, this opportunity for this project is immense. You know, the kids could go on into anything, into motorsport after this as well. You know, engineers, mechanics, sound engineers, IT, anything they want after this. You know, we don't have this in the UK. We don't have this type of projects. And obviously for you can probably tell us about it, because to be honest with you, you're obviously doing an apprenticeship as a mechanic anyway. If somebody said to you, Zach, look, forget your apprenticeship, we want you to do this and be a part of this project and get yourself in a Cobra and fly you out to Watkins, Glen, and you can have a look and drive it, what would you say?
Where do I sign?
Exactly, that's exactly my thoughts, exactly.
Just let me do it. Like, such a surreal thing. Obviously, I love learning, like, why things work. So obviously, you know, being the little nerd that I am, I'd love to sort of get into the intricacies of it. It's like, you know, always at college, it was, why does that do that? Oh, the engine does this, but yeah, but why? How? So obviously that's what maybe this is going to sort of delve into a little bit more, and, you know, give the insight to all these students that, you know, they're going to be able to learn all of that, because as I say, you tick physics, chemistry, biology, maths, engineering, all of these different things to craft, you know, yeah, sure, grease monkeys, it's just nuts and bolts and a little bit of oil, but, you know, to the engineer that made it, it's, you know, all these different calculations and making sure everything is nice and refined, making sure it's aerodynamic, making sure the brakes work, making sure that you're getting the right fuel mixture into. I assume it's carburetor if it's in the 60s. I'm gonna guess they don't have direct injection or anything like that as of yet.
That's correct.
Yeah, so obviously the carburetor does the mixing for you. So you've got all of that to bear in mind. Obviously, you've got the safety behind it. Obviously, you don't want to be choking yourself on carbon monoxide or anything like that from exhaust gases. So you've got to learn every single intricacy of the autocar. Why different tire? We spoke about tire construction and things. These are on radial, which means that the actual plies of the cords of the tire are at a 90-degree angle relative to each other, as opposed to cross ply, which is at 45-degree. The radials give a little bit more lateral load, which allow them to be a little bit more grippy, which is why they're more common now, as opposed to the cross plies, which were fairly common back. To be fair, probably back at this time, in all fairness. But you've got all these different things, that these students are going to learn about and become more familiar with, which is such a huge thing because automotive, it's such a huge thing. You can be a diagnostics tech, you can work on the aircon, you can specialize in cleaning the car, the bodywork, the tires, brakes, suspension, steering, engine tuning, turbos, all these different avenues. There are so many different branches. Yes, it's all under automotive and cars, but are you the guy that wires up the stereo? Are you the guy that fits the tires? There are so many different things under this huge umbrella that these guys are going to have the opportunity to find out what tickles their fancy, because they're like, well, I like cars, but then this, I suppose, gives them that opportunity to try and specialize and narrow down what they want to do.
Well, I think that's the thing. As you say, there's so many things within the automotive industry, right? We look at it and we just sit back and say, it's a car, right? Your common person will just drive up, they will go to a garage, the garage will say, it's a car, it's a Ford Focus, it's this and this and this. There you go. You get in it, test drive it and go, ooh, that's wonderful. I want one of them. Go and buy it, and now you've got yourself a new car. Now, for anybody who works on cars, as we can see here, this is Natalie Hayes, who has taken over from Larry Tompkins for Waverley Central School District. Oh, big snap, big snap. Oh! Nope, unfortunately, round the outer loop, it was not saved there as well. But as you say, Zach, there are multiple avenues to take, isn't there? There's multiple paths in a car. They need the person who fits the lights. They need the person who does all this. They need the likes of George, of course, who works within the automotive industry. Yourself, who works on it, who works on the car and does it all. And there's just so many avenues. And I'm hoping these young adults grasp this opportunity, full bore by the ball here as well. Get the ball by the horns and put everything into this, because this isn't an opportunity that's given to children every single day. And we don't have this in the UK. And, at most you might get to learn the trumpet or some other obscure instrument, but the school lay all that on for free and everything else, and you don't pay for lessons and stuff like that. And as I said to the kids when I was there, and don't get me wrong, I picked up a trumpet, and trust me, I sound like a cat, and many times I had my missus trying to kill me because I was playing a trumpet at home. But it's like I said to them then, these opportunities don't come around every single day, do they? They don't come about every single day. So why somebody like Pius, who's been at the forefront of spearing this project, I think these guys literally should be sat there grasping it, taking it full bore, Zach, and going for it, because we haven't got this. So for them, it's a direct, great opportunity for them to get into the automotive industry.
Yeah, don't waste it at all. I mean, we've got 5 schools here today: Waverley, FD Roosevelt, John Jay, Owego, and Royce Ketchum. How many schools are there in the US? How many schools are there in the world? And you're one of these, the small selective group of high schools that are being able to take part in this. You're then one of the few selective students at said high school that is able to take part in this. And then you're going to be potentially, if you're able to, as we progress through the season, I suppose, of racing that these guys have got in the simulator, you're then potentially going to be that one student that drives the car and represents the school. So you're a very niche minority. A very fortunate one at that. So, why waste it? Why sit around on your phone in lesson? Give 110%, even if maybe, I don't know, some lessons are boring or whatever. Don't don't sit around and waste it. Try and take in as much as you can. Try and use it to the best of your ability. Try and walk out of each and every single day learning something new, saying, I understand how tow works now. I understand what camber is, what caster is, how suspension all comes together, how what the 4-stroke cycle is, or how a carburetor mixes air and fuel together. Anything like that, build upon it. Get out there, get talking to people, be proactive, impress. Shine head and shoulders above the rest, because it is going to help. It is going to show through. And when it does come to getting jobs, are they going to choose the one that sits on their phone during lessons, or are they going to choose the one that participates and gets involved and gets hands on and asks questions and wants to be there, as opposed to the one that's like, whatever, it's cool, cars, whatever. They're going to give it to the one that's more proactive, obviously, but also on that, they get more practice time. The more proactive they are in lessons. So obviously there's also that incentive. You want to be quicker on the sim, get more practice in, you be better in lessons.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a nice thing. So yeah, definitely something I wouldn't waste. That's for sure. And if any of these guys don't want their spot, I'll take it.
Me too. I'm 42. I'll happily. Actually, I'm not 42. I wish. I think, as my wife would probably say, that was 3 years ago, James. I'm 45. I'll go back to school. I don't mind building a Factory 5 Cobra, right? So if any of you guys sat watching the broadcast and you're, thinking this ain't for you, hit me up. I'll happily take your spot. Pius, give me a shout. We will deal with it there as well. George, one of the things that Zach just touched on there as well is about the way the internal school's point system is working. Can you give us a little bit more details on the internal point system here for the schools itself?
Yeah, I can do that. Before, I just want to mention of the times here that we're having as they're cracking down. FDR is first with a 143.446, so the newcomers are at the top of the sheets right now. And then John Jay second with a 146.648. Ketchum is 147.953, and we're watching currently Waverley, the last year's champs, having their attempt, and Owego still to come. So this is the list of the standings as of now, with John Jay and FDR are the ones that they're provisionally going into the head-to-head final right now. Coming back to your question about the internal point structure of the schools, yes, there is a system about how the schools will be getting their champion, let's say, or their person to represent them into those races once every month, and they do get them based on points. So every student will have the option to compete within the school. As we see here, Waverley having a moment. I don't know if they managed to complete that lap.
It was a very big moment, George. Yes, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So trying to get the points of the schools is that every student internally, before the actual competition among the other schools, will have to be selected from that school on how to, or who is going to be the one representing that school. And they get points for practice. So every point that they get into the school system, depending on how well they do in the classroom, it's going to equate to 1 minute of practice. Obviously, if a student has 5 minutes of points, then that is in Watkins Glen probably 2 or 3 laps, and the fastest lap gets the one that is going to select the student. If somebody has 15 laps, then that's about 7 to 10 laps. So you can see that the better student, the better you do in the classroom, you get more practice time, that it can give you more opportunity to be the one representing your school onto the big events.
Yeah. So there is an opportunity there for the young adults to obviously take part in the big events for their school. They've just got to be good. And I think that's one of the things there as well. We have had Waverley set their time. Now, I'm registering as a 141.9 here, but I got a funny feeling there might be a different time to that, as I'm just waiting for it to be sent through to me so I can give you what Waverley's time is, of course. And then we go into the Owego Central School District at the hands of Nick Rogers. Now, Nick obviously is a wrestling coach, so, and a huge part of the success in Owego. Now, obviously, Wrestling over here again is something that not the UK do, so, fair play to them. I've just been told it's a 1:48.1 for Waverley at the moment, so we've still got John Jay and FDR out in front of this pack here as well. So, there's plenty of, they've got to, I suppose for Nick, he's got to kind of grasp it by the horns here, Zach. He's got to go with his little AC. He's got to go and try and do what he can do with it, because at the moment they haven't got a time on the board, and it's looking like a 1:43.446, obviously, with FDR. Will, if he can take that, will do a good job for them. But it's quite an interesting experience getting into a sim rig for the first time for anyone, let alone these guys who probably never existed, never really knew that Outworld within sim racing existed there, Zach.
Yeah, it's, again, a very niche thing. And it's like,
It
what do you do for work? What do you do for work? Oh, I talk about pretend race cars that sat at home. Oh, what's that?
You
so it's a very small thing.
It to me. You want to try and get
to your dad. Yeah, you've said.
To try and get people to, even in general, they don't understand what we do here.
Nah, they don't at all. So one thing it's talking about is one thing. Actually, driving it is another. And stepping into that sim rig, we've all been there. Anyone that's actually driven, you get into it for the first time, thinking, "Oh, it's gonna be easy. It's a pretend race car. It's easy." And then you go, "Oh, that's a wall." It reminds me of Enquires 3 when Lightning McQueen first gets on the simulator at his high-tech training facility, and he's like, "Oh, look at me, I'm Lightning McQueen. I've got 3 piston cups, and bang, 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 you've hit a wall." Basically, what it is, and it's astonishing to me because people, in America, you can drive for, I think, 15, you can get your learner's permit, and then you can be fully licensed by the time you're 16 or something like that. So, you're driving for from quite a young age, on the roads and stuff, albeit not necessarily on a racetrack, but you know how to drive. And then you get into a sim rig, and all of a sudden you just forget.
Yes.
Which is fair enough, because again, they're so different. You've got different brake pedals, different force feedbacks, and it's weird feeling that sensation. So to get into it for the first time and then actually get into a car that is designed to go fast, not your nan's Toyota Prius, but an AC Shelby Cobra that's like meant to be really quick with 340 odd brake horsepower at the moment, 400 odd newton meters of torque. This is a quick car on not very grippy tires at a very difficult circuit. It's going to be tough. It's not just, trying to find a parking space at Walmart, I suppose, trying to translate everything into what the Americans don't understand. I was about to say Tesco's, but Walmart. But yeah, it's a tricky thing to get used to. And then you think, this car's got loads of grip. Then you send it into turn 1, basically flat out. You find the wall very quickly. So it's all about developing those skills. To you and I, it'd be quite easy. Oh yeah, brake at this point, trail brake in, get on the power nice and smooth. But to these guys, it's completely alien. Yeah. So that's why I think maybe John Jay will have a good advantage, because by the little bio, we've got William Roos as an avid sim racer and motorsport head, which tells me he's got a little bit of a fundamental knowledge, which definitely will be a nice little bit of a bonus.
I'm just seeing 2 cars here. I'm a little bit worried.
Yes. So the Wego lap was not a good one to outpace those 2. So we have finally the 2 champions, let's say, of the ones that are going into the head-to-head, which are the 2 schools that we see right now, which is the John Jay and the I believe FDR.
Yeah,
so FDR is the first time in the competition. They're the newcomers, the newbies, let's say, and they have made it to the first head-to-head. I think that's a great start for the school.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you can get through first. Now, am I on the understanding here, George? Now, I want to make sure I can get this correct, right? Because obviously it's been a bit of a manic conversation between me and Ross today. They're going to drive round and go onto the grid, is that right?
I believe this is going to be a recon lap, and then they are going to line up on the grid, or they're going to do a rolling start. I haven't get the communication right on that, but I think that's the first lap to warm it up, and I think they're going to move into a race session where they're going to go head-to-head for 2 laps. But from the recon lap, I see that they're very close already.
Yeah, they're not a thing. As I say, me and Ross have been communicating pretty much since Ross woke up here, I'm not going to lie. Now, George, you were supposed to be here yourself, wasn't you? I believe you had a little bit of flight trouble.
I was supposed to be in Watkins, Glen this morning, but actually last night my plane would land. But there was a kind of a storm going through, and all the flights were cancelled yesterday. So I didn't have the opportunity to select a new flight. If I was flying this morning, it would have been I would be reaching about in 30 minutes from now. So that wouldn't have made any sense.
No, right, okay, no worries. That's for. So yeah, formation lap, 2 laps, and then this is where they're going to be up and running. I'm going to be interested to see when the green flag drops there. As you can see at the moment, we've got yellow showing in sector 3. That's partly because of the drivers have stopped on the line, so that's why we are showing yellows. Now I'm going to presume there's somebody in the background at the event who's going to be somebody went backwards there, and at the moment it is William Roos from John Jay out in front. Coming down into turn 1, you see FDR at the hands of Sean trying to play catch up. I think he went into reverse off the start there, Zach, and unfortunately it looked like the car of FDR has gone round.
That's a shame. And unfortunately, R does not stand for race gear. It will send you going backwards, which obviously does put the control straight to William Roos, who has been able to find first gear and has been able to command this race in the opening moments. Of course, they do get 2 laps of racing, and that is unfortunate for Sean Christensen because, yeah, not the way you want to start a race, but who knows? Again, with the lack of experience for some of these guys, with mistakes on the horizon, with a difficult car, a difficult track, yeah, it could still be done.
Well, let's see what William can do with this car as he starts going around that long right-hander of outer loop. And then we've got the short, sharp run up into what would effectively be turn 9. I believe it's like turn 5 on the short track here as well. How are FDR getting on? They're just coming round now the outer loop. As you can see, they would normally go through the bus stop, which will be the final event here as well. So they've managed to keep it back on track there as well. George, a bit of a shame there for FDR. Went backwards off the start. He found reverse. I suppose if you're not used to a sim rig, you are going to go backwards. He went backwards off the start and then spun it in turn 1.
Yeah, I think this is what happens when you panic in the beginning. You lose a little bit of time. It should have been, okay, let's recoup and re-go, but try to put everything together and catch up. Miss the braking in turn 1, went wide, and now there's a massive gap. It's not over yet, still 1 lap. William can still pin it. I don't know if at this point you just kind of like slow your pace down and let it cool, get the win, or you just there we have it.
yeah, he nearly put it on the grass, did William there as well, and trust me, no, don't do it again, okay, do it again. And unfortunately there, William Sean has gone round again there, so obviously, you know, Mr. Sean Christensen, I'm sure he's not auditioning for Swan Lake with the amount of times he's gone round there. Zach as well. It is tough. Come on, me and you know, we banter with the drivers. We have a bit of a laugh and a joke, and normally at their expense. But it is tough in general, isn't it, when you're sim racing? And that's
always.
The thing.
Always at their expense.
Always, yes.
But that's on seasoned sim racers who should know better.
Yes.
These guys, we can cut a little bit of slack. I won't be as horrible. Give them a couple of rounds, then I'll start ripping into them. We'll bed them in nicely.
Yeah.
We'll lure them into a false sense of security that they're safe when they're not. Never are you safe. But yeah, it's difficult. Again,
Yeah.
you know, I'll act all mean and horrible and look at me, I'm a sim racer, I know what I'm talking about. No. It's just you go out there and you go quick. Get that stopped. Bit of a lock up as he held it. Beautiful.
It was good.
Beautiful.
I'm not going to lie from William there, Zach, as well. I'd be proud of that move. I'm not joking.
I would.
You know what I mean?
I'd be proud not to be in the wall. I'd be like, hey, I've just saved that. Bit of a lock up. But again, the way you do it, obviously, these cars have not got anti-lock braking systems. They barely have brakes. So you brake, you send all that kinetic energy to the brakes via friction, heat energy obviously given off because friction does heat. But then you get to a point where the force on the brake disc, on the hub and the wheel bearing and stuff that actually actively turns the wheel, clamps and it locks and it just skates. You've got no turning force. It's not rolling. It is just skating across the track, which is not fun. But the way to do that, essentially, don't press the brake harder. Actually, come off it ever so slightly. Basically be your own ABS, because what ABS does is as soon as you brake and it sees a lock, it just gets off the brake pressure a little bit and it just pumps it until you stop. That's not great. And well, back to the pit lane, I'm sure.
I got a funny feeling here. This is gone round again. Excuse me, why for some reason my screen has just decided it doesn't want to go here. I will show you that again as it comes down. It's looking like turn 1 is his almost bane here, because he's done the same thing again in turn 1 and then has exited back to the pits. Now, William, it looks like William Roos from John Jay did take that win, and he's come over the line. And I suppose for John Jay, they've got a bit of an advantage already here. Now, obviously, we get notes handed to us, and, the guys at FDR, just awesome for Sean, and first year in. Williams is a little bit different here. Avid sim driver and motorsport head. Now, do we feel that John Jay have got a little bit of an advantage in this whole kind of competition?
Yes.
Again, I mean, we were having, we got some eyes on the ground there, and they were telling us that we said that not much time on the sim rig, but Ross was spotting that there was some heel and toe going on. So that's some serious skill craft for those cars.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, I can't heel and toe. So there was some still serious skills going here as well. So, you've tried heel toe.
I've tried in my Golf.
How did that work out for you?
From 4th to 3rd, I can do it. From 3rd to 2nd, I can't. Also, I tried to do it on my 3rd driving lesson with my dad, to which I sent him and my girlfriend flying forwards because whilst trying to, bring my heel to, well, really the side of your foot to the accelerator, I in fact actually pressed the toe further down, therefore braking harder, and yeah, it was a very sudden thing, and I didn't even change down a gear. It's a very difficult thing to do, let's put it that way. A little bit easier in sim racing because the pedals are basically exactly where you want them to be, but heel toe, rev matching and things, that's a complex skill. So yeah, John Jay looking pretty good so far. I mean, it's only the pre-season, only the exhibition race, but we'll see what they can hold over the course of the season.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing. We've got the drag race to come, the autocross race. Then they've got the Watkins Glen NASCAR layout, which I believe is the one that they've just done, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Then they've got the street course race with damage. It is right, isn't it, George? This is the NASCAR layout?
Correct.
Yes. So then we've got the street course race with damage, and all of the street courses they could do, Zach, they've stuck them at Long Beach. So that's very nice of them. Then,
could have been Belle Isle.
Yeah, well, it could have been. Then they've got a 60-minute race at Watkins Glen with the boot. So, of course, that's the full circuit with the chicane. Then they've got 60 minutes at Watkins Glen with the boot in the wet. That's going to be an interesting one. And then the season finale, so 7 rounds in all, is the 2-hour race at the permanent road course endurance Watkins Glen with the boot and driver swaps for 20 minutes or so. Then they've got live weather to contend with. George, they've stuck them on a tough road circuit. Long Beach, only 4 rounds in as well. That's a lot for these drivers to contend with, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but it was part of the diversity of the curriculum. We wanted to showcase in this particular case with the street course and damage. We wanted to do some work on the dampers and some work on the suspension, which obviously Watkins Glen being a grade 2 racetrack, it's very smooth and very nice. But in a street course, all this comes alive since the angulations and the high frequency stuff is the one that creates the biggest hurdles on setting up a car and understanding what the car is doing when it is bottoming or when it is hitting the bump stops that is affecting greatly the handling. So that's why we wanted to have a street course, but then we go back to Watkins Glen to wrap it up with the full boot and then the wet and then, as you said, the endurance layout.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting, well, I suppose a 7-round season for these guys. I think there's going to be an interesting developments and the more, how they get on and what the practice time they've managed to get as well, who's behaved. Young adults, if you are watching, behave, to get your times up, to be able to get your practice times on as well. I have been made aware now that some of the children are in the car and they are just having a spin around, hence you can see them going off there. But I suppose overall we should get William Roos a shout out. So John Jay High School avid sim driver and motorsport head for the win, so well done to them. And Sean Christensen from FD Roosevelt High School, who has finished in second, so that's not a bad shout at all. I think that as this project goes on, these races are going to get more and more interesting. We've got the drag race coming up, we've got the autocross race, we've got rain, we've got street circuits, we've got kind of everything here for these 7 rounds. It's definitely going to be an interesting 7 rounds for these guys.
Yeah, these guys have got it out tough. It's like welcome to sim racing, bam, in the deep end.
Yeah, there's Long Beach.
It's tough. Yeah, here's Long Beach. Here's wet weather and R Factor 2. Yeah. It's difficult. Yes. But fair enough, best way to learn, I guess. But obviously, as the year goes on, as the season goes on, not only maybe the students, if they behave, are going to get a bit more practice time in the sim, but they also understand a little bit more about the car. They can understand how it handles. They can, I don't know, maybe go on YouTube and watch some advice. Top 10 ways to get better at sim racing. I don't know. That might be a video somewhere. It probably is. Go and watch that. Go and understand it. And by the next time you're into the sim rig, try and apply some of them. Just get a little bit better each time. Again, most of you are new, so we will cut you some slack. But yeah, it is again at the end of the day. I suppose it is just all a little bit of fun. Is that? Don't do that.
No, don't do that. That's bad.
It's a good way to write off your course.
Yeah, you can see George sitting there going, "I've just designed them cars, and now you've crashed them." George, it's going to be an interesting 7 rounds, isn't it?
It is, and just to give a shout out that when you were asking about how those cars are developed and tested, we do, and Winner's Circle has professional race car drivers that they are involved with the project. We have Chris Dyson, the son of Rob Dyson that I used to watch in endurance racing back in the day. So he's now in the Trans Am Championship, leading that. Is actually racing in Watkins Glen this weekend. So shout out to him if you guys are watching. Root for him. Is trying to wrap up a triple championship, I think. So 3 in a row. And then we have the legendary Willie T. Ribbs also being part of the school assistant program. So we have a lot of professional race car drivers that they are coaching, and they are going to be driving those cars. They give feedback to the kids. So this is great opportunity for them to learn from the pros. The pros also drive and tested our cars, so we have get their blessing from them. So it will be super nice to see how the season gets along. And I'm pretty sure that by the 7th round in the endurance, it's going to be all gloves off and a great show.
Absolutely, it will be as well. But for now, guys, we're going to wrap it up here on the JPB Broadcasting channel. We're going to let these wonderful young adults have a burn around in the cars and drive around Watkins Glen. But it's been a pleasure to be here for the first race of the series. And hopefully we will see you on the next 7 as well, as we'll be doing, obviously, the drag race, the autocross, the road, the street, all of these things going on here as well. But it's been a pleasure to be involved with this one. Must give a shout out to Pius, obviously the founder and the main brainchild of this operation. Come and spoke to me, and we had a wonderful conversation. He's such a lovely bloke as well, so a massive shout out to him for coming up and setting this all up with us as well. So for now, guys, that's going to be the end of this one, and we should see you on the next one as well. But now, as always, for myself, Zach Sweeney and George Angelidis, the three of us up here in the booth. You all take care. Have a great week. And you never know, we might see you on the track sometime. Good night.